Welcome back, everybody, to the next episode of our podcast. All right, so Lindsay, now that we've talked about all the ways that we have, encountered God and made space for Him in our daily lives, let's talk a little bit about what are some barriers that you have seen in your own life and maybe in the lives of others around you that you've learned from or that you've seen and you've said, like, man, that's just not healthy. It's maybe not biblical. What are some of those barriers, and how can we just steer clear from them, not by our own power, but by relying on the Lord and just, again, making room for the Holy Spirit?
Yeah, I think one thing that I have observed about many of my friends or many people we're in community with is the packing full of their schedules. And that creates an atmosphere of chaos without them really knowing it, because these can all be good things, right? Going to dinner with friends or doing an extra project that you really enjoy, all of these things that can be good. They also can prevent you from having the space to invite God in and to pause the space that we're talking about. And so one of the things you and I do really well is we do not subscribe to that at all. Like, we don't have our kids in a bunch of sports. We don't have plans months in advance. We just don't pack our schedules full. We like to do things kind of sporadically, or even sometimes last minute. We'll text people and be like, hey, do you want to meet us at blah, blah, blah? And most of the time our friends are not available because they have all of these scheduling conflicts. And that's okay, but I really think that if we're going to be on mission for God, if our primary desire is to be with Him, then we're going to create space for Him, which means we ask Him, what do you want me to do today? Not like, here, God, this is all that I'm doing today. Bless it, right? Which is what we've seen our whole lives, really.
And we've also done that
We absolutely
previously.
have.
Yes.
But to allow your schedule to have flexibility is to allow the Holy Spirit to have space to move. Because when the Holy Spirit moves, it's not on a timeline. Like, it's, oh my goodness, we ended up praying for 2 hours instead of doing the thing that was on our schedule. Wow, that was really surprising. But if you allow your schedule to have flexibility, you're going to have more experiences with God Himself. So I would say that's one obstacle, is creating a very, very full schedule. Another thing is technology, of course. What are some ways, Andrew, that you have to be on technology for your job? So you're like, you can't get rid of things. You have to have your phone with you. You have to, Yeah. So what are some things you've done to create boundaries with technology?
Yeah. I mean, yes, like you said, I have to be on. So I'm a video editor and a video producer. And so I'm constantly either filming on site, which I do enjoy. Just as a side note, I just love like in-person stuff. It's just so great to like be in-person filming and to be like engaging with people. I just love it so much. But most of my job, as many of you probably are, is remote. And so I have an office here at home, and yeah, I'm always on. There's always something that's going, and I'm very sensitive to electronics already, like just the flashing lights and the blue light and all that stuff. Very, very sensitive to it. So if I'm looking for too long, I just kind of get, I don't feel very well after doing that. But in terms of distractions, yeah, if I was to let that into my life, I mean, Slack would be on all the time. My text messages, whenever those came in, calls, And if I answered those every single time from anybody at work or even just family or friends, I would be stressed out of my mind. And I did used to live that way, where I was kind of a people pleaser. And praise God that He's done a work in me recently in the last several years to where I just, sometimes to my detriment, I think, I'm just not as much of a people pleaser. I just kind of don't really care what people think. And that's not a mean thing. That's just sort of like, I just am not going to let that person control my emotions or my.
You care what I think,
I
though.
do. I so much care what you think. Yes. And so whenever messages come in and it's like, hey, we need this thing like really quick, my first response is, okay, why do we need this so quick? Who's asking for it to be quick? And is it really that urgent? Because if I was just to say yes to every single thing that comes through, it would not be good. I'm already stressed as it is with work, as I'm sure many of you are. And so, yeah, I keep my phone on do not disturb very often. And people will say, like, oh, hey, I was trying to get a hold of you. And I was like, hey, I was at lunch. So what do you need now? And I just don't really care anymore that there's like rushes and emergencies. Now I get that every now and then there's going to be something that is going to come up where, we need this now. Something really crazy just happened or whatever. And that's fine. Those are far and few. But I definitely do place boundaries now. And I just tell people like, hey, I can't talk. Or, yeah. So, and one thing I'll say too about that is that this can be easily miscommunicated or misconstrued as, oh, if a friend sends you a text message, you must then take days to respond to them. No, that's not the case.
Oh,
This is kind of veering off, so I don't want to go off into
we
this.
can veer off. This is personal life.
Sure, we'll veer off a little bit. So, text messages. When people send me a text message, I see that as like, man, they took the time to send me like a personal message encouraging me or asking for my opinion or whatever it is. And so I just personally have man, if I haven't responded in 24 hours,
Something's really wrong.
something's wrong. Like I want to respond within 24 hours. Now, if it's someone that I don't know at all, then that's a little bit different. But to friends and family and people that I know, I want to honor them by responding as if I was in the same room. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you sent me this message. I'm going to get back to you as soon as I can.
I'm the same way. You
Yeah.
know what really bothers me? I've told you this before. When people don't respond to your text messages, but they'll respond to you on like Instagram messaging or Facebook messaging. So like I have close family and friends who will do this. And I'm like, I am so confused. You won't respond to me a personal message, but you're on some sort of social media. And if I can't get a hold of you via your actual phone number, I have to go message you on social media. I think that says something about our culture.
Yes.
Like, I think that says, wow, we value social media so much that that's the avenue for all of our communication.
Yep.
And that's really sad. Like, I miss flip phones
Yeah.
Right?
I do.
where you couldn't do any sort of screen on there. You could text and you could call. And it was 10 cents a text when I was in high school.
And
so
if you wanted to send a text, it wasn't a quick thing. It was
it was you
you gotta
gotta
click-
press the button
press
three
the button
times
three
to
times,
get to
yes.
that last letter, right?
yes. Oh, yeah, I mean, on that note, another one is, since we're already on this little tangent, but is
I like this tangent.
okay, good. So is you send someone a text or you call them or something like that, and you leave a voicemail, and you see them posting on social media, posts that aren't not
Important.
that they're going through anything serious. It's like, oh, here's me and my latte, or me doing this, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. So you have enough time to post content on social media for God knows who, but someone who took the time to send you a message of encouragement or like, hey, how are you doing? Takes you weeks to respond. And so I think that's something we can all learn from. Some other ways that we kind of have barriers in our lives and ways that we have seen in the past, like kind of not making space for God in our lives. Definitely technology is one of them, as we've
Which
talked about.
includes TV and like
Yes.
binge watching
Yes.
Netflix, right?
Yes. Which is not a normal thing, by the way. Like if you're listening and you're going, oh man, they're touching on a sensitive subject. Good. I'm glad, because the
Yeah.
thing is, like, that's not normal to sit on a couch and to the fact that we use the word binge, like that's not a good term, by the way. Go look it up. Binge watch seasons and seasons of TV shows, but then with the same exact heart and soul, we say, man, I feel really lonely. I wish I were closer to God, or I wish that I was closer to my friends or to my church family. I'm like, there's something wrong there.
Right. And let me just say that if we think we have the time to watch 8 hours of whatever the newest show is on Netflix, and we're Christians, we are wrong because we don't know the hour.
Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
Yeah. Yeah. But we don't know the hour that he's going to return, right? And we've already been sent on mission for what to do with the time that we do have. We don't know the hour that we are going to take our last breath. Like tomorrow is not promised to us. And so valuing time kind of goes hand in hand with this making space. And so, Netflix can be the distraction. Even your kids can be a distraction. And they're a good distraction. God gave them to us. They're such a gift. But not creating boundaries with your children. I did this for years. I remember, Andrew, you coming home from work and you seeing me so flustered and being like, here, take the kids. I gotta get out of here. That was me not creating boundaries with my own children because I didn't think that that was necessary or even okay or loving. But then after growing and understanding that really we have to have boundaries with everybody but God. God is the only one who gets all of us. Right. And we get all of him too if we, allow the space for it. And so creating boundaries with my children looks like, hey, I'm reading the Bible right now. You cannot interrupt me again. Like you've come out into my space and I'm busy. I'm with God. So go do something else. That's not unloving to my child. That's actually showing Alistair or Sybil that I have a higher priority than them. And they need to know that. They need to know that my life does not revolve around them.
Right. And that also God is more important than them.
Yes.
When I have said this to people in the past, they kind of they get a little squirmish. They're like, really? Do you really believe that? But and I've said this to you, the Lord is way more important to me than you. Mm-hmm. Now you're the next thing from right below God. You really are. And then it's the kids and then it's family and all that stuff. But if it's between time with the Lord and with the kids, I'm like, man, I'm sorry, but I need this more than I need you, and also more than you might need me. And so you're right, setting those boundaries, I think, is healthy. I think it can be unhealthy, kind of just with our topic on barriers. I think it can be unhealthy when parents sort of, I don't want to say helicopter parents, but yeah, parents who are just constantly with their kids all the time, and they can't separate themselves because they think, well, my kids need me. Your kids will be just fine. Mm-hmm. God will take care of them. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that you can't tell them, hey, I love you guys. I'm going to the other room to be with Jesus.
Yeah.
Don't interrupt me.
Well, and to be a better parent, you have to do that. I cannot be a loving, fully present parent if I haven't spent any time with Jesus. Because in my flesh, I'm annoyed, right? I'm annoyed that they have needs that I have to put my needs behind. and do things for them. When I'm with Jesus and I have the perspective that he has, which is to put others before myself, I can be a much more loving parent who is fully present. And so my kids benefit from me putting boundaries out there, right? Like I am a much better parent now than I was when I was helicopter parenting years ago and didn't have any boundaries. And I'm not stressed out. My kids don't stress me out now. They can kind of at times be annoying, right?
They really can. Can I just say real quick, you have beautiful eyes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's just in the light that we have here
The light that
in
you've
this
set
little
up
studio.
in our closet
I'm
studio.
just like, dang, her eyes are really.
Thanks, babe.
You just have really nice blue eyes. So
Thanks.
okay, okay. So as we start to begin to land the plane here with this episode, I want to also just still staying on that same topic of barriers to making space for God. One of the things that has been really instrumental in me connecting with the Lord on a very deep level is being in silence. Like absolute silence. And some of you who are listening are probably like, that sounds horrible. But the thing is, that's probably exactly what you need more than anything, is just sitting in absolute silence and dealing with all the emotions and feelings that you have and all the things that come up and just laying them before the feet of Jesus.
So how do you get that silence, babe? In a busy
Yeah.
life, how do you get that?
Here's the thing. You have to plan for it. You have to create the space. You cannot just say, "Oh, it'll figure itself out. I'm going to put something on the calendar and I'll just, I'll try to see if I can get the kids out of the house and whatever." No. It needs to be so intentional. As intentional or more than how you would plan a date for you and your spouse, or you and a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. You find a restaurant or you find a venue or something that you want to go to, and you figure out what kind of food you guys want to eat or what you want to, what kind of show you want to go to, and you start to create the date. We don't do that with God. We just are like, well, I'll be at church on Sunday and I'll figure something out.
I'll pray for 10 minutes in my car before I go into church.
That's right.
That's enough silence for me.
Yeah. And try that with your spouse or girlfriend and boyfriend. Your relationship's not going to last very long. Like, oh, hey, I have 10 minutes now. You want to talk? No. It's a constant giving up of your personal time and saying, you mean more to me than my time. And so for me, practically, I love coming home to an empty house. It is something, any fathers out there that are listening, I'm sure you might feel the same way. But man, there's something so special about coming home and there's no one there. No one. You just have the house all to yourself. You can walk and you can look around at the bedrooms. I know I'm weird, but like you can like walk into your space and be like, oh, this is my home that I never get to experience because I've always got kids hanging off of me, or there's, and so the way I create that space is just trying to schedule things. I'm like, babe, I need this time. I'm going to go on a bike ride and I'm just going to put instrumental music in my ears and I'm just going to go be with Jesus. Now, if I need absolute silence, that's when I'm like, I need to find a time when I can come home and just no one can be in the house, because I want to know that no one's gonna catch me. No one's gonna catch me talking out loud to God. I don't know why, but I just don't like that. I want to be able to be in such a private space to where I can be speaking out loud and no one's gonna hear me. Maybe it's just embarrassment. I don't know, but knowing that the house is empty is pretty great. And so
Yeah, I think you said something about going on a walk with just instrumental music. That's another thing. We often think that music, worship music specifically, can help us kind of enter the presence of God. And that can be true at times. but it can also be a distraction because it's more words in our brain that we're already, our days are filled with words from the radio, the podcast, the TV, our children. Like, silence means silence. So the way that I practically get that is I don't bring my phone with me when I go on walks. I don't have headphones with me. I'm literally listening to the wind blowing through the trees, and I'm looking at the leaves falling, and I cannot help but praise God for fall, like my favorite season. But the thing is, I'm present, and my brain is silent before him so that he can speak to me through nature, through his voice, through my inner monologue. Like, I'm allowing the space, I'm not filling the space. Does that make sense?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, so that's just an encouragement from us to, no matter who you are, and you might say, okay, I know that there's going to be someone out there that's going to say, well, you don't understand my life. Oh, but you don't understand. No, you don't understand. No, just kidding. But for real, like, there's no excuse. There is zero excuse. Unless you are in a situation where, I don't know whether it's like political climate, like in the country that you're living in. I want to be obviously open to the fact that,
To be proven wrong.
yeah, to be proven wrong, and also that, I'm speaking from an American perspective, someone who lives in a really quiet neighborhood in Nashville. Like, that's my perspective. But in general, if you want to find space and silence with God, you can find it. It's just you actually have to make it a priority.
Yeah.
And so I would just encourage you, we would encourage you to do that. And one way to do that, as we sort of
Yeah,
really
this will
start,
be our last
like,
thing before we.
yeah, the wheels are like about to hit the runway. And we're
No,
about to,
the wheels just popped
they
out.
just popped out.
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
they're
So
not.
we're just about to land. Is Sabbath.
The Sabbath.
The
Keep
Sabbath.
the Sabbath holy.
Man,
What does that look like?
I'll say for me, and then you can share for you, and then maybe we can share for us.
Cool.
Cool. Okay. So the Sabbath for me is totally stopping any kind of work. And I mean, like, not even. So the other day, we actually just moved into a new house, and
Which that story is coming soon.
Yes.
Because it is.
that will be a bonus episode at the very end of this
It's
show.
literally, it deserves a whole episode.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So we moved, and of course we're getting some new furniture and updating a couple things. And so our daughter got a new bed frame, and it happened to arrive on Saturday, which was the day that we
Had chosen.
had chosen for our Sabbath that week. And it arrived, and we were just chilling. It was a great morning. It was very slow, coffee, tea, just.
We had seen some friends.
Yeah, we had seen some friends. It was very, very chill. No work involved at all. And I think you were like, "Oh, let's get that set up today." And I don't know why. Of course, it might have sounded a little, mean at first, but I wasn't trying to be mean. I was just like, "Nope, we're not doing that. We're not doing that."
But here's an aside. That would be work to you, right?
Yes.
So that can't be your Sabbath if you're doing work.
Yes.
Like putting a bed frame together would be work to you. But for me and Sybil, because we were excited and because we don't do that type of work every day, using our hands to build that bed
It's kind
frame
of like your Sabbath.
could have added value to
Yeah.
our Sabbath. At the end of the day, I did decide, like, yeah, we're not going to do
Yeah.
it.
And it was
We'll
so
leave it.
great
Yes,
that we
it was,
didn't do anything.
It was so great. It was
Yeah.
such a restful, intentional day.
Yep.
But all that to say, everybody's Sabbath can look different because what you evaluate as bringing joy and pleasure, that's different for everybody, And that's what Sabbath is. It's enjoying God and taking the gifts that He's given you and fully being present and enjoying them without doing work.
Okay, here's a question.
Okay.
If that is the case, and which I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I think that's valid. What if someone let's just say some random person, was like, oh, but for me, me working on a Saturday and Sunday at my job, or I mean, really, Sabbath can be any day of the week as long as it's an intentional stopping. But if they're like, well, I actually work for me is really relaxing and soothing, and I love my job. So for me, when I take my Sabbath, I also work. What would you say about that?
See, I would say the Sabbath needs to be different, like markedly different than every other day of the week. So if you're working every other day of the week and you enjoy it, that is okay, but your Sabbath needs to be intentional time with the Lord, and not working is important.
Right,
Does that make
because
sense?
because what is the Sabbath? How did it come about? The Sabbath was God rested on the seventh day.
Yeah.
God didn't need to rest. He did that as an example for us.
Right.
Who
And then
we're gonna,
Jesus says that the Sabbath is for man, not man for
yes,
the Sabbath.
absolutely. And so we really do need to heed that word. And again, not that I disagree with that setting up a bed frame on your Sabbath is wrong or not
See,
restful.
but I don't set up bed frames every day of the week.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's where it differs.
Yeah. I'm just thinking like, okay, so if God rested on the seventh day and didn't do anything, and he looked at all of his work and he said, it's good. Yeah, I'm going to rest now. I think that should be our primary example. And I don't know what that looks like. Of course, we can't fully rest. There's no way for us to completely go into like a dormant mode. We're always going to be doing something. We're going to be, you got to make your coffee. You got to grind the beans. You got to,
Not me. I grind mine the night before.
okay. But you know what I mean. So yeah, we'll just kind of,
Well,
go ahead.
that does remind me that like you have to plan for the Sabbath.
You have to, just like the dates that we were
Yep,
talking about, the
yep.
date night. Yep.
So there's a lot of planning that goes into creating space for God. So if I'm not going to do any work on the Sabbath, actually, I don't do dishes on the Sabbath. Like I plan for my kitchen to be dirty.
And we try not to cook.
Yeah.
We try to have pre-cooked meals of some sort. Or,
Yeah, whether that's leftovers, like I made a bigger meal the day before, or we, go get food out. But I absolutely try to make my day different than every other day. And I cook every other day, so I can't cook on the Sabbath and feel good about it. Like I've done that before, and I've been like, that wasn't restful because I do this every other day of the week.
Yeah, love it. Well, I hope that you all are encouraged, and thank you again for listening to us just kind of talk and rant and just sort of be a husband and wife who are sharing thoughts.
Yeah, so just to
Kinda
recap,
fun.
some ways to create space for God in your personal life are creating space for silence, like being intentional and planning your silence, removing technology at least for a portion of your day or one day a week. What else did we cover?
I mean, I would add that, in the vein of like meditation and daily devotion, it should not feel like an obligation. If it feels like an obligation, you might want to just check your heart. Like, and I don't mean that in a judgmental way. I just mean really search your heart and say like, why do I feel like this is a task that I have to check off?
Right.
Like, it is out of pure joy that we get to experience God and be in relationship with Him every day. And so that's what I would say is make space by just asking God to meet you.
Yeah. And the reason we chose personal life to be our first episode is because that's where it all starts. You can't create space for God in other areas of life if you're not doing it in your day-to-day personal life. In the whatever happens in the quiet, in the secret, that's actually what's really happening in the real life. So start there.
That's good. That's really
Start
good.
there. Start in your prayer closet.
You're good at this.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
This is my first podcast episode ever.
Me too.
I've never been invited to do a podcast, so we just created our own.
I have been, and I'm thinking after this that I might actually take that person up on
Yeah, you should do
doing it. Yeah.
Because you have actually such a sexy voice.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cool.
And let's end there.
And let's end there. Well, thank you all again for listening, and we're really excited to share with you the next episode, which we're not going to reveal yet what the title of that is because we're not sure exactly what the title. I mean, we know what the general topic is, but yeah, thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you next time.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Life in the Space. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated on future content that we have coming out, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If there's a friend that you think would find this episode helpful, feel free to also share this with them. And as always, if you have any thoughts or suggestions or just want to say hello to us, we love hearing from you. You can shoot us an email at lifeinthespacepodcast@gmail.com, and let's keep the conversation going.